let's look at President Biden's health. And while we're at it, let's look at the 2028 Democratic primary for president. Welcome to Scrying Out Loud. My name is Trevor. First off, a huge thank you to all the new subscribers. Thank you to everybody who's subscribed to the channel. If you watch the videos but you're not subscribed, I'd really encourage you to subscribe. It just helps the algorithm. If you like, watch, comment on the videos, a huge thank you. Those of you that are promoting the channel on social media, huge thank you. And if you've donated money to the channel through the Buy Me Coffee, Venmo, or Super Thanks, a big thank you. So President Biden was diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer. Now, there are some treatments that essentially buy time. I think the most common treatment is an orchiectomy, which is not exactly the most pleasant thing for, I think, men to think about. I don't know that President Biden will choose to do that, and we'll have to look at that. My instinct is that he won't. And I think when I was scrying on him this morning, at the top of his concerns is what's going to happen in 2028. That's why I want to look at 2028. I think he has a couple people that he's going to encourage to run that might not normally run, one in particular. And but of utmost importance is trying to get the balance back in the country. I think that's his priority, and I think that's how he will use his next amount of time, which I don't think is short by any stretch of the imagination. I think he's got some time. It also depends a little bit on some of the treatments. The orchiectomy is pretty barbaric. Basically eliminates all testosterone. You know, I think there are some drugs that do similar things, but I don't think they're quite as effective. So we'll start by kind of going through what I think he's thinking as far as the 2020 primary, and then we'll look at his health, and we'll end up at that. So I think he will be encouraging Vice President Harris to run again. I think he'll be encouraging Secretary Buttigieg, or Mayor Pete, as you might know him better, to run as well. And then I also want to look at JB Pritzker. We looked at him running before, and we got that there might be a slight health issue with him that might actually keep him from the running. But the real question is how successful they would be if they choose to run. Now, let's start with Pritzker. So JB Pritzker is the current governor of Illinois. My understanding is he could run for governor again if he wants, that there isn't term limits in Illinois, but I could have that wrong. I think he's going to run for president. But I think there might be something that prevents him from actually getting all the way there, like a health diagnosis, nothing like super serious, but the problem is that there's probably going to be, in my estimation, anywhere from 10 to 20 people running for the Democratic primary, out of which probably 20, it might even be as high as 30. I think 15 or 20 will make it to the first debates. I think the debates will start in 2027, right after the 2026 midterm election. Could even possibly start in 2026 because there's going to be so many people running. Gina Raimondo from Rhode Island, I think, will be running. I think Gavin Newsom's going to run as well. I think There's some questions about Elizabeth Warren and Amy Klobuchar. We might see some dark horse candidates again, like Eric Swalwell and Stacey Abrams. The Democrats have a pretty loaded bench of people that can run for president. And then there's the governors, like Laura Kelly from Kansas would be an interesting choice. Andy Beshear from Kentucky. But let's just focus on Pritzker, Pete Buttigieg, and Vice President Harris. So, what can you show us about J.B. Pritzker in the 2028 presidential election? Will he run? So, what are the energies that are going to influence that? And I get this kind of like he's going to run, but he doesn't make it to the votes. Like he drops out for the Iowa caucuses because of some health issue. Yeah, I don't. I think we pulled the three of swords for him the last time too. Um, I don't know if there's a known heart issue with him. I mean, he's not super old. I think he's in his early 60s. He's a little bit overweight, which is not necessarily an issue at all, but I just wonder if there's not something there. So we get the three of swords. We get the star card in the environment around. I do think it's his wish to run. I think he wants to run. We get judgment in the upper right. That's not surprising. Running for president's all about being judged. We get the King of Wands. He's very fiery. He's very passionate. I think the Democrats need him to run, just because I think he's a great messenger. Whether he actually makes it to the votes being counted in the primaries is a different story. But just until um, the protests are going to level things out this summer, I really think that. I think the felon goes in the late summer, early autumn to mid autumn. The protests that are going to be happening this summer into the fall are going to moderate a lot of thinking because it's going to be very clear that Republicans cannot win in the current environment. So keep those protests up if you're one of those that are protesting. Keep calling your congressman, especially about the budget. Um, I, I think the budget's got a long ways to go still, but it never hurts to call and tell them that you oppose cuts to Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security. Yeah, look at the Four of Cups at the center of the reading for Pritzker. It's like it's a feeling of I'm not sure I'm up for the job physically. I mean, it is a ways away, right? I mean, campaigning would probably start right after the 2026 midterms, which are, I guess, what, 16, 17 months away. With the Eight of Pentacles, he's hard worker, he's skilled, he's uh, a good orator, which is important. And I think in general, he's pretty well liked. Now, he does come with the baggage of being from Illinois. Now, personally, I don't think that's baggage, but Republicans will harp on that. They'll make up things about Chicago, et cetera, et cetera. So, um, yeah, families, reunions, and celebrations. I think his family is important to him. Well, I think family is important to most people, but I think this issue here, this health issue, is going to put family at a more centered part of his life. We get the devil card and the energy around this is toxicity, abuse of power, mis and disinformation. And I think this is things that are going to be directed at him, not things he's doing. And I think it's things that are going to be directed at Democrats, but in particular him, because just being from Illinois and tying him to the Chicago crime rate, which will be totally blown out of proportion. Uh, they'll just make up numbers like they always do. But and we get the Six of Swords moving away from the trouble. So again, I think there's a minor health issue. I don't think it's anything dramatically serious. I don't think it's anything that can't be treated with a medication, possibly a minor surgery. But it's going to make him think about these things. And it's going to give him kind of an apathetic feeling about running for president. And he's almost going to look at it as his way out of feeling obligated to run. Because I think he feels obligated. And I think a lot of people are going to feel obligated to run just because of how much is at stake. We do get the card for families and reunions and celebrations. I think his family comes forward um, and they talk it over and they form a judgment. And I think he runs, but I don't know that he makes it to the actual votes being cast in the primary. So he very much wishes he could run. He's very much got the skills to run. And we're not going to read on whether people are going to win the Democratic primary. It's just too early for those energies to be settled. But he's definitely skilled. But he's going to worry about attacks on his family, on his character in particular. We got the devil card and then we got the 10 of cups. I think there's going to be a lot of lies lobbed about his family. And I think it'll be also from inside the Democratic Party as well. For whatever reason, this push against people that are wealthy, being in power, I think is going to prevent him from being, I don't think he'll be able to go through a primary unscathed. Now, I'm not saying one way or another what I think about that push, but he's very passionate. He'll figure out a way to help even if he doesn't run. So, yeah, something happens. Something happens along the way, uh, which leaves him feeling wounded in battle. And it's something of an emotional nature. And he's going to think about what's best for the Democrats. And I think that might be him not pursuing his candidacy. Again, I think he announces he runs, and I think he starts running and he starts campaigning. I don't think he makes it to the votes being cast. And I think it has something to do with his health. So, again, I don't think it's anything terribly serious that's like life threatening. I think it's just one of those things that makes him think maybe I shouldn't do this. Okay, let's move to Mayor Pete. So I was kind of, I guess, wishfully thinking, right, on my part. I was kind of hoping Mayor Pete would run for the Senate in Michigan, and he's not going to do that. He's not going to run for governor either in Michigan, which means he's most likely running for president, which is fine because I think he should run for president. I just thought that he could run for Senate, win that seat, and then run for president. That was just my personal take on it. That's exactly what Obama did, right? Obama won the Senate seat in Illinois and then immediately started running for president 2 months later. So I was kind of thought Mayor Pete might do that, but he might think that he needs to jump in the race before the midterms. I think people are going to announce they're running for president soon. I don't think it's going to be until after the midterms. I think we'll have candidates before the midterms. What do we need to know about Mayor Pete? Is he going to run? What are the energies that are going to influence his campaign? So in the scrying bowl, there's like a slot machine and it's 777. So I think that's a yes. He's going to run. I think he'll be a successful candidate. I don't know that he'll win or not win. I'm not really reading on that just yet, but he's pulling out big town halls already in Iowa. He got a standing ovation because somebody complimented him on speaking in complete sentences, which I thought was humorous and also quite sad that our current people in charge, not just the felon, but there's others too that cannot speak in complete sentences or formulate logically sound arguments either. But it's for another day. What do we need to know about Mayor Pete? I think if you look at some really early polling, he's right up there with Vice President Harris. People know his name. He's got good name recognition. He's kind of a breath of fresh air. Yeah, he ran for president in 2020, and he was a breath of fresh air then. He's a little bit older now, and he'll be a little bit older in 2028 as we approach the voting. But he's still a breath of fresh air. He speaks very eloquently. I think he speaks like 7 languages, something like that, which Republicans would probably not like and find a way to bash, you know. So we had judgment in the environment around. I think he's a little bit worried about his family now that he has kids with his husband. We get the 7 of Swords, deceit and deception in the upper right. We'll have to get some context to that card. That's not necessarily a bad card. Depends on the context. We get the Hierophant in the environment around the church, the Pope, the government. I would think that the church would stay out of the politics, meaning the Catholic Church, but you never know. Anything's possible. The Pope has said some anti-LGBT statements in the past, but I don't know that that's actually what he thinks. That's not when I feel his energy. It's really he's a very curious person, which is why I think he's going to be a good Pope. I think he studied mathematics or some sort of science when he was in college, so he's obviously pretty intelligent. And logical. So we get the Tower at the center of the reading. Tearing down of some structures. We get the 7 of Cups. There's a lot of options on the table for him. He certainly does not need to run for president if he doesn't want to. I think he's going to. We get partnerships. We get the World card, the end of a cycle. And we get the 8 of Pentacles. He's a hard worker. If one plan doesn't work, he'll figure out another. These are not the best of cards, but he's a breath of fresh air. He would tear down a lot of structures and a lot of societal norms. Now, as people get used to the idea of same-sex couples, I don't know that that's a really big deal in the abstract, but in the literal, it it might be a hindrance to him. And we get the Eight of Pentacles. He's hard at work. He's thinking about this. The reason why I brought up his husband is the Two of Cups is usually about romantic partnerships. And then the Tower, like the tearing down of structures, and then we get deceit and deception. It's like I feel like Republicans might just make up complete and utter lies about them. This isn't unusual. They've been making up complete and utter lies about the LGBTQ community for decades. So, but them in particular, that concerns me. He's got lots of options. There's judgment in the environment around. This isn't like judgment from the voters. This is, well, I mean, it is, but it's not like at the ballot box. This is like forming a judgmental opinion. I think there's going to be a lot of hate lobbied at him, I guess is what I'm feeling. We get the Hierophant. This could be the courts, it could be the church as well. He is a pretty spiritual person. Some people don't like that. And it definitely would be the end of a cycle, just, in the historic nature of it, if you were to be the nominee, for example. Let's see what's underneath. Choices, the Two of Swords, Crossroads, the Two of Wands. Yeah. The Wheel of Fortune, either turning for him or against him. And the Ten of Swords, the end of a dark cycle. This could be in the end of a dark cycle because he goes out and wins, but I don't know. I'll just be straight up and honest with you. I don't have a good feeling about it. I had a good feeling about it until I drew the cards. So we'll check back on that again in a few months. But it's like all the propaganda and hate going around right now. I worry about his safety, I guess is what I'm saying. But I don't think we need to get ahead of ourselves. Okay, so Vice President Harris. I think I'm going to use this deck. Will she run for president? What are the energies around that? It's a possibility she might run for governor of California, but she might not. Some people say the governorship of California is a step down from vice president. I don't know if it is or it isn't. I think it's a matter of your perception or a matter of how she perceives it. But there are already some good people already announced that they're running for governor, like Katie Porter, I think's announced that she's running for governor. So I don't think she's worried that there won't be good people. And I don't think anybody's worried that Republicans are going to win the governorship of California. Although it could happen if the Democrats mess up the primaries, right? Because it's a jungle primary, and if there are too many of them, it's possible that a Democrat doesn't even get on the general election ticket. But I think they would be smart enough not to do that. Would hope. Okay. Energies around vice president. Running for president. I think she'd be quite successful if she runs. I think there'll be some skepticism. Yeah, she's the Queen of Pentacles. She's thought to being a um, moderating force. I think people realize now she's right about the economy and that the felon's an idiot. Why they ever thought he was better for the economy, I have no idea. The Seven of Pentacles, the seeds have already been planted. She's already got a grassroots support system. Fundraising would probably be pretty easy for her to jump back in to the race. She raised a lot of money when she ran for president after President Biden decided to step aside. I think she definitely has the upper hand if she jumps in. We get the uh, Knight of Swords, things moving quickly and swiftly. I do think Democrats run the risk of if she jumps in, it turns out to be like the primary with Hillary and Bernie and um, Martin O'Malley, which know how many people remember that Martin O'Malley ran for president in 2016, but he did. Um, to where, it just gets whittled down to like a few people by the time the voting starts. I think there's the risk of that. The Seven of Cups, she has a lot of options. She could run for governor, she could run for president, she could do neither and just form an action committee and go around campaigning for all sorts of candidates. We get the Page of Swords at the center of the reading, sabotage, a spy in the camp. That's interesting. Let's keep going. We get Ten of Cups, families, reunions, and celebrations. I think a lot of people would be excited if she runs. We get the Moon card, things coming to the surface. It feels kind of like the one thing that she's going to have to overcome is there's going to be a lot of people second guessing how the campaign went in 2024. And we get the Devil card again in the same position as we got for Pritzker. Mis and disinformation, abuse of power. In this case, I think it's just lie after lie after lie about her. And not just from Republicans, also be from Democrats, because there's going to be a primary. It's a question of how bloody the primary gets. And we get the Ace of Swords, the truth. So she'll go into it as people thinking that she's great for the economy or that she's good for the economy and that she's, a steady leader. Then there might be some second guessing along the way with the Page of Swords. Ultimately, the truth comes forward. So the second guessing might not last very long. Things coming to the surface that make people second guess her candidacy. But then things start moving swiftly. And I think the primary would end quickly if she runs. And I think she worries about that because I don't think that was a good thing even though the primary didn't technically end very early with Hillary and Bernie in 2016, it was mathematically over very quickly. Like Hillary had won the nomination and Bernie just stayed in there for his own reasons. But the fact that it whittled down to two very quickly didn't really, I think, serve the Democrats very well. Versus like with Biden and Bernie in 2020, there were a lot of people that ran, a lot of ideas exchanged. And then when coronavirus came about, that's when it whittled down to two very quickly. There were several people that made it all the way to South Carolina, and then they all dropped out and endorsed Biden like the day before Super Tuesday, right? And then Biden won, I think, all but 3 states on Super Tuesday, and then it was essentially over. So I think there's concern about it actually whittling down because of the fundraising that she can bring in really, really quickly. So seeds have been planted. This is a 7. This is also a 7. Uh, she's got lots of possibilities. She has the ability to unite, I think, but she's gonna have to ask herself, does she want to go through this devil energy again? All the lies that were being told about her, oh, she has a drinking problem. Do you remember that one? The videos that made her sound drunk, the attacks on her family, in particular, her stepchildren and her husband. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of fighting, the Five of Wands, emotional messages coming forward. And then this was always my card for her, was the Queen of Wands. She's a very passionate individual. So I'm not sure if she's going to run. I think it's 50-50. The only one I'm absolutely positive is gonna, well, two. I think Mayor Pete and Pritzker are for sure running. I don't think Pritzker makes it to the votes. Okay, let's move on to President Biden. Okay, so he was diagnosed with this aggressive form of prostate cancer. The main treatment is a hormone therapy, and I'm fairly certain what they mean by that is an orchiectomy, which is not the easiest of surgeries to recover from. Let's ask the general question. How is President Biden? What do we need to know about his mental, physical state? How is President? When I was scrying, I just get that he's really concerned about the country. I think he's going to be making some phone calls. I think he'll try to encourage Vice President Harris to run. I think he'll also encourage Mayor Pete to run. President Biden. Media has been pretty cruel to him lately. You get the full card. It's a new beginning. He's got a new outlook on life. This is putting things back into perspective. It's making him think about his family, his um, children, grandchildren, and of course, Dr. Biden, his wife. Yeah, we get the double card in the environment around. This is the toxicity that's just been in the surrounding environment for the last week with the release of the audio from the special counsel interview to, I believe he was on The View with Dr. Biden, and somebody made a comment on how somebody on The View made a comment to the media about him, and for whatever reason, we get the Chariot card. Things are moving. He's moving forward with life, so I don't think we need to worry about that. He fully understands the situation. We get the Empress card in the environment around. Again, a lot of emphasis placed on his family, his children, his wife. probably even reminiscing about his own parents as well. The potential that he might, I don't know what's up with his grandchildren, but they are old enough to be getting married. I don't know if any of them are. Um, Perhaps this is even, perhaps there's a new person coming into the family that he's thinking about. With the Page of Wands, firing messages. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes out swinging one day. The King of Swords and the environment around. He knows what the truth is, and he's a better person than most, to where I think he can just accept what is true about his time in office, even though people maybe don't believe it's the truth, right? The economy was good. He handled COVID well. All of these things are true. He was, by all accounts, a very successful president, um, which is why Republicans are trying to undo everything he did, because they understand how transformative it was. Um, but the seeds are planted. Circles of support around money, but this I think is about health. He's got good doctors. He's at a crossroads. He needs to make a decision. So, a new beginning for him. This There's a lot of fire and passion still left in him. Uh, this diagnosis is definitely something that has changed his thinking, which leaves him at a crossroads on what to do. I think some seeds have already been planted in his head about what to do. And we get the message about the illness, and then he's moving forward. What he chooses to do really is none of our business. I have the feeling that he's going to choose a very moderate treatment and go that route. He's got good healthcare providers. Uh, Definitely thinking about family. His late wife that died in the car accident, and his infant daughter, that they're on his mind a lot. Again, he knows the truth about his life and his legacy, and it really doesn't matter what people are saying around him. He doesn't like it, but I think it bothers his family more than it bothers him. So he's got cancer. It's an aggressive form of cancer. He's got to decide on his treatment options. Uh, I think he's got some time left. I don't think we're talking about anything happening anytime soon, but um, you know, I don't know that he'll seek the most radical treatments, is what I guess my instincts are that he won't, that he'll go with something more, less radical. So stability and judgment and thinking about the next generation. And ultimately, he knows he's strong, and he's thinking about the legacy he's going to leave, the Six of Pentacles. So, yeah, I mean, it's a sad situation for sure. Um, but he's going to make the choice he's going to make for what's best for him and his family. Um, yeah. So anyhow, thanks for watching. I'll be back with another video soon.